Welcome, my soft-thinking listener. You found yourself in the company of the sleepy sloth once again. A slow, scientifically minded fellow who enjoys facts about machines that crawl, hum, and clatter gently across the earth. Tonight, I consider myself a scientist of tractors. A scientist wannabe, who is almost always correct, except for those few times when I am not. But even then, I prefer to drift gently onward, rather than fuss over it. Because what truly matters is the information itself. Before I start, please, let me know, what is the most boring thing you would secretly love hearing about? Let me know gently, in the comments. Now, let us begin today's episode. On the early days of the Caterpillar Tractor Company. It began in 1925, in a manner as steady as freshly packed soil. The Caterpillar Tractor Company was formed from the merger of two quietly industrious firms, the Holt Manufacturing Company, and the C.L. Best Tractor Company. Both had already spent years tinkering with heavy machines that crawled on tracks instead of wheels, inspired by the need to move weight over soft, uneven earth. When they combined their knowledge, the result was not a spark, but a slow, enduring glow, a company destined to rumble gently through the coming century. The name Caterpillar itself came from the long, slow motion of the track system that seemed to crawl like a living creature over the land. The newly merged company made its home in California, where fields stretched far and wide. The earliest tractors were powered by gasoline engines, noisy, patient, and somewhat stubborn companions to farmers and builders alike. And in that same year, 1925, the company produced its very first official model under the Caterpillar name, the Caterpillar 60. It was not glamorous. But oh, how it worked. The Caterpillar 60 was a track-type tractor, meaning it rolled not on wheels but on continuous metal tracks, a design that allowed it to glide softly across muddy fields and sandy plains. It weighed about 20,000 pounds, or roughly the mass of a medium-sized dream, if dreams had mass. Its four-cylinder gasoline engine produced around 60 horsepower, which, at the time, was a gentle marvel of engineering. The 60 became the quiet foundation for all that followed, the first to bear the name that would become synonymous with slow, steady power. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the company chose a deep yellow hue for its machine, a color that made them visible even through clouds of dust and fog. That same golden tone still whispers through their modern descendants. As we float onward to 1927, we find Caterpillar beginning something quietly revolutionary, research into diesel power. The engineers, ever methodical, were not chasing speed, but endurance, an engine that could hum longer, sip fuel more efficiently, and run cooler under strain. The diesel engine, unlike its gasoline cousin, used compression ignition. The air inside the cylinder was squeezed until it became hot enough to ignite the injected fuel. No spark plug, just heat, patience, and timing. For years they tested and adjusted, like careful watchmakers of motion and noise. And then, in 1931, their efforts took form in the Caterpillar Diesel 60, the world's first successful diesel-powered track-type tractor. Its steady rhythm was deeper, more resonant, and somehow more soothing. Diesel engines burned fuel more completely, offering more torque, a term describing the slow, twisting strength that lets a tractor pull and push with calm determination. Farmers and builders soon realized this meant fewer stops, less refueling, and more hours of smooth, humming progress. By 1935, Caterpillar introduced something that would define its image forever, the first bulldozer blade attachment. The concept was disarmingly simple, a large curved metal plate mounted to the front of the tractor, allowing it to push soil, gravel, or rubble ahead of it. But in that simplicity lay quiet beauty, the way a machine could sculpt the earth itself, one slow, powerful sweep at a time. These attachments transformed tractors from haulers into builders, the quiet artists of land and form. Just a few years later, in 1938, Caterpillar produced its first in-house diesel engine, the D9900. This was not merely an engine, it was a statement of self-reliance. Designed and built entirely by Caterpillar, the D9900 marked the company's shift from assembler to true creator of power systems. It was a four-cylinder, pre-combustion chamber design that delivered roughly 89 horsepower at a calm, rumbling 1,000 revolutions per minute. The slow turning meant longevity, engines that could hum for days, their rhythm so steady it seemed like breathing. The D9900 became the heart of many machines, including generators and tractors that worked tirelessly through fields, forests, and construction sites. And so, through the 1920s and 1930s, Caterpillar grew not quickly, but deeply, like roots spreading under the soil, unseen yet unshakable. It became known not for glamour, but for reliability, for the quiet kind of progress that doesn't shout, but hums. There was a certain quiet heaviness to the world around the early 1940s of our time, when engines and tracks found new purpose far beyond the farmlands and quarries where they once hummed in peace. Caterpillar tractors, those slow and patient creatures of steel, were called into service during the great global conflict that reshaped the modern age. Across deserts, jungles, and frozen plains, their engines droned steadily, pulling, pushing, grading, and clearing paths where no roads yet existed. In the soft haze of dawn, these yellow machines moved earth for the Allied forces, shaping airfields, supply routes, and bases in places where the soil had never before known the press of heavy machinery. It was not glamour or glory that drove them, but persistence, the same quiet endurance that had been built into every bolt and bearing since their earliest designs. Their tracks left broad, deliberate marks across landscapes that had been silent for centuries, carving smooth ground for runways and camps with patient precision. Many who operated them said the sound of a Caterpillar engine, slow and rhythmic, felt almost like breathing, a mechanical heartbeat in the middle of uncertainty. And yet, in the year that followed, as the war's reach deepened, the hum of these engines grew louder in number and purpose. Around the year 1942 of our time, Caterpillar's factories shifted entirely toward war production, becoming vast, echoing spaces of iron and oil. The engineers, once makers of farm tools and worksite companions, now found themselves crafting diesel engines for military vehicles and generators. These engines powered bulldozers that cut through tropical mud in the Pacific, hauled supplies across North Africa, and pulled artillery in the cold, rutted soils of Europe. The scale of this transformation was immense. Production lines ran day and night, their machinery glowing softly in the dim factory light, surrounded by workers who often described the sound of diesel engines testing as something strangely steadying, a deep, grounded hum that reminded them of progress even amid uncertainty. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Caterpillar engines were so dependable during this period that military engineers often reused them after the war ended, refitting them into civilian machines that would build roads and bridges for decades afterward. It is said that more than half of all Allied engineering machinery bore the mark of the Caterpillar brand before peace returned. When the silence of peacetime finally settled, the hum of tractors did not fade, it merely softened. Around 1945 of our time, Caterpillar introduced a smaller diesel machine known as the D2. It became a quiet favorite among farmers, builders, and anyone who needed strength in a compact form. The D2 was not large, just over 3 tons in weight, but its 4-cylinder diesel engine could produce enough torque to handle even stubborn ground. It was, in essence, the post-war dream of efficiency, modest, practical, and endlessly reliable. Many operators spoke fondly of how gently it moved, how its low, purring sound seemed to blend into the air of early morning work. It represented a world that was rebuilding, slowly, patiently, one furrow, one foundation at a time. In a world tired of noise, the D2's steady hum was the sound of renewal. Its diesel heart required little more than fuel, oil, and care, yet it could work tirelessly for hours, moving soil, towing implements, or clearing debris left by the war's long shadow. The D2 became not just a tractor, but a symbol of resilience, an unassuming helper for a world finding its balance again. As we drift softly onward, the story carries us to around 1947 of our time, when Caterpillar's vision began to stretch across oceans. To meet the quiet but growing global demand, the company opened its first factory beyond the United States, a modest yet purposeful plant in England. It was a practical step, born from necessity. Shipping fully built machines across the Atlantic had become too cumbersome, too slow for the rhythm of a post-war world. Instead, Caterpillar decided to bring production closer to where the machines would work. In the English countryside, among rolling green fields and misty mornings, this new factory began turning raw steel and diesel into machines that would soon shape landscapes across Europe and beyond. The sound of these early overseas assembly lines was soft and steady, metal tapping, engines testing, the gentle rhythm of creation repeating itself on new soil. The decision marked the beginning of Caterpillar's transformation into a truly global maker of motion, not loud or dramatic, but gradual, like a tree spreading its roots quietly beneath the ground. But the engineers, ever curious, were already looking ahead, to something larger, stronger, and slower in movement. Around 1949 of our time, they began development on what would become one of the company's most famous lines, the D9 bulldozer. At this stage, it existed only as a prototype, an enormous machine designed to push mountains of earth with smooth precision. The D9 represented an evolution of philosophy more than of form, to create a machine so large and powerful that it could move entire landscapes, yet remain graceful in its mechanical patience. Engineers tested new hydraulic systems, refined track designs, and experimented with weight distribution so the machine could glide evenly across uneven ground. There was beauty in the precision, the way geometry and balance turned brute force into quiet mastery. Those who witnessed its early trials described it as an elegant kind of strength, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. And somewhere near the midpoint of the 20th century of our time, in the year 1950, Caterpillar added yet another gentle note to its expanding mechanical symphony, the introduction of the first track loader. This new machine combined the sturdy traction of a crawler tractor with the lifting capability of a front loader, allowing it to dig, lift, and carry in a single, smooth rhythm. It was the kind of practical invention that did not demand attention, but quietly changed everything. With this, the world's work sites grew more adaptable. Machines could perform several tasks with fewer movements, saving energy, fuel, and time. The track loader's birth reflected Caterpillar's love of refinement over reinvention, not a new species of machine, but a thoughtful evolution, a merging of two old friends into one. Its hydraulic arms rose and fell with calm certainty, as though breathing in the dust of the earth itself. But first, another gentle detour. For something quietly significant that happened in that same soft year. Around that same period, Caterpillar formed its first overseas subsidiary, Caterpillar Tractor Company Limited, based in the United Kingdom. This was not just a branch, but a promise that the golden machines would be built, used, and maintained by people in lands far from their birthplace. It marked the start of a long, quiet globalization, a spreading of steady motion across continents. Through this expansion, the same yellow paint, the same rhythmic hum of diesel, and the same dependable designs began appearing across construction sites, farms, and developing cities around the world. The Caterpillar name, though softly spoken, began to mean the same thing everywhere: strength, endurance, and the comforting hum of something built to last. And so, by the middle of that century of our time, the quiet march of Caterpillar's creations had reached from dusty battlefields to green farmlands, from American plains to English hillsides. Each new engine and track design carried within it the same gentle philosophy, that power, when steady and patient, could shape the world without haste or noise. Let us linger here a moment longer, before we drift ever so slowly onward. There was a certain slowness in the air around the middle of the 20th century of our time. A kind of steady hum beneath the surface of progress. By then, Caterpillar had already built a name as the world's quiet expert in the movement of Earth itself, and in that calm rhythm of invention, another softly powerful machine was born, the DW-10 tractor scraper. Introduced around the year 1953 of our time, this thoughtful creation was designed not just to move across the ground, but to reshape it with measured precision. The DW-10 could scrape, carry, and deposit soil in smooth, flowing arcs, as if sculpting the land rather than disturbing it. It combined a tractor unit at the front with a scraper bowl at the rear, working together in slow synchrony, almost like the movement of two animals bound by purpose. This machine became essential for the large earth-moving projects of its day, airfields, dams, and roads built with quiet determination. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the DW in its name stood for diesel wheel, marking a gentle but important shift away from the track-type machines that had defined Caterpillar's earlier years. On its large pneumatic tires, the DW-10 could travel more quickly over firm ground, carrying loads up to 10 cubic yards, which might not sound like much. Yet when moved repeatedly, patiently, hour after hour, it became the motion that shaped whole landscapes. And as the years drifted softly forward, around 1954 of our time, Caterpillar unveiled a new kind of crawler, the 977 track loader. It was among the earliest of its kind, a hybrid creature of steel and oil that could both dig and lift, moving like a careful sculptor's hand. It combined the traction of a crawler tractor with the agility of a front-end loader, creating a new way to handle earth without switching between separate machines. With its hydraulic arms, it could raise its bucket high and tilt it with elegant precision, all while crawling steadily on its metal tracks. This was not speed. It was control. Each motion deliberate, each sound part of a quiet rhythm, the scrape of steel against soil, the sigh of hydraulics, the muted roar of a diesel heart working beneath layers of dust. The 977 became an indispensable companion on construction sites and quarries, praised not for its flashiness but for its patience. It could load trucks, shape embankments, or clear rubble with an unhurried grace that seemed almost meditative. Operators often said that once you settled into its seat and matched your breathing to its pulse, the hours passed like slow waves rolling across a shore. Then, just a little later, around 1955 of our time, came a machine that would become almost mythical in its quiet power, the Caterpillar D9. This was the company's flagship bulldozer, and though it was built for great strength, there was nothing harsh about it. Everything about the D9 was balanced, its immense blade at the front, its heavy ripper at the back, its wide tracks that distributed weight so evenly that it seemed to glide, not crush. It could move tons of material in a single, slow sweep, leveling ground for highways, mines, and cities yet to be built. Its engine, a deep-voiced diesel, produced over 300 horsepower, a sound that resonated low and steady, like the purr of the earth itself. But first, let us pause for a tiny detour. For a detail that most would overlook. The D9's introduction marked a subtle philosophical moment in engineering, the transition from mechanical control levers to more refined hydraulic systems, giving operators smoother handling and a gentler sense of power. It was a step closer to the harmony between human and machine, where the work felt less like domination over nature and more like collaboration with it. A few soft turns of the calendar later, around 1957 of our time, another thoughtful creation rolled into being, the first Caterpillar wheel tractor scraper. This machine, unlike its track-driven ancestors, combined the hauling and loading process into one smooth, continuous motion. Its design allowed it to scoop up earth as it moved, carry it over distance, and then spread it evenly, like a giant hand smoothing out wrinkles in the land. It was efficiency made tangible, but still, in its operation, there was that slow, predictable rhythm, scrape, lift, roll, release, repeated endlessly under open skies. Construction workers came to rely on this rhythm, knowing that each pass brought them closer to a level foundation or a finished embankment. Its large rubber tires gave it both speed and gentleness, gliding over terrain that would have challenged older track machines. In this blend of strength and softness, the wheel tractor scraper became a quiet revolution, not something to marvel at loudly, but to admire in its patient perfection. By the time the decade of the 1950s was beginning to close, Caterpillar had already begun to look at the wheel not just as a support, but as a tool of power itself. Around 1959 of our time, the Caterpillar 834 bulldozer appeared, the first of its kind, built specifically for pushing and leveling material using wheels instead of tracks. This might sound simple. And yet, it represented a gentle but meaningful shift in how machines met the ground. The bulldozer moved with a kind of rolling grace, less friction, more fluidity. It could maneuver more easily on firm surfaces, such as gravel, compacted soil, or the growing number of paved industrial sites. The 834 became a favorite in mining and stockpile work, where long distances and open spaces called for smooth, sustained movement rather than raw traction. Its large front blade was shaped to push without aggression, guiding material as much as moving it, allowing operators to sense the flow of earth beneath them. But first, a slow little detour. For a minor but beautiful engineering truth, the bulldozer's development required new approaches to balance, since the absence of tracks meant engineers had to rethink how weight and traction interacted. The solution was found in careful geometry, a low center of gravity, wide tires, and an articulated frame that let the machine bend gracefully as it turned, like a creature adjusting its stance mid-step. And as the quiet hum of progress continued into the early 1960s of our time, yet another machine joined the slow parade of innovation, the Caterpillar 988 wheel loader, introduced around 1961. At the time, it was the largest wheel loader in existence, a vast but composed machine, capable of lifting and carrying enormous quantities of rock, gravel, or soil. Yet even in its size, there was gentleness. The 988's hydraulic systems allowed for astonishing precision, letting the operator control tons of material with the delicacy of a hand moving sand across a table. Its diesel engine offered over 400 horsepower, yet what one remembers most from descriptions of the era was the sound, a steady, resonant hum that blended with the clinking of stones and the soft hiss of hydraulics. The machine's design emphasized balance and stability, giving it a kind of mechanical poise. Its high, rounded loader arms arched upward like the wings of some heavy, grounded bird, lifting earth toward waiting trucks under slow-moving clouds. And drifting softly onward, around 1963 of our time, Caterpillar introduced yet another giant, the 651 scraper. This was not a small, nimble creature like the early D2, but a massive, high-capacity machine designed for large-scale earth-moving. It could carry more than 40 cubic yards of material in one go, working in tandem with powerful tractors to reshape landscapes faster and more efficiently than ever before. Yet, even with all its power, it was still governed by that same rhythm of patience, tut, lift, roll, spread, the eternal breathing pattern of earth moving. Its size and capacity made it essential for highways, dams, and airfields, quietly defining the shape of the modern world. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Caterpillar engineers devoted months to studying soil flow, how dirt and clay behaved under pressure and motion, to perfect the scraper's bold design. They discovered that even the angle of a blade, shifted by a few degrees, could change how material settled inside, reducing resistance and saving fuel. It was this kind of gentle obsession with detail that defined the company's philosophy, the belief that even the smallest adjustment, repeated across thousands of machines, could ripple softly through history. And so, through this calm stretch of mid-century invention, the golden machines of Caterpillar did not rush or roar, they evolved, one measured breath at a time, teaching the world that progress could be slow, steady, and beautifully quiet. There is something quietly majestic about the way the world's great machines evolve, each one born from steel and soil and the hum of ambition. Around the middle of the 1900s of our time, the Caterpillar Company turned its gaze toward the rugged landscapes of mining and heavy earthwork. In the year roughly 1965 of our time, they introduced something remarkable, the Caterpillar 769 off-highway truck. It was not just a modified road vehicle, it was a machine built purely for mining, for the endless lifting and carrying of earth itself. Its frame was higher, stronger, and shaped for weight rather than speed, with a diesel heart that rumbled like distant thunder under rock. The 769 became the ancestor of the great fleets that would later crawl through open-pit mines, hauling stones heavier than whole buildings. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the 769 marked the first time Caterpillar separated the concept of truck from road, teaching the world that movement could belong to the terrain itself, even when the terrain was made of dust and dreams. And then, only a couple of years later, in the soft hum of 1967 of our time, Caterpillar lifted another curtain, this time unveiling the 245 hydraulic excavator. For the first time in the company's long history, it entered the realm of hydraulic digging, replacing the slower cable systems of earlier decades with precise, fluid motion. The 245 could move as if breathing, its arm gliding on the pulse of pressurized oil, its bucket curling and lifting with mechanical grace. This wasn't just machinery, it was a transformation in rhythm. Hydraulics allowed power to flow like water through steel veins, turning what once required brute force into a kind of industrial ballet. These machines became the quiet dancers of construction sites, shaping foundations and carving landscapes that would outlast their creators. Just a year later, around 1968 of our time, the earth beneath the wheels changed once again. Caterpillar released the 814 soil compactor, a machine whose task might seem humble, pressing the ground until it was firm and smooth, but which carried immense importance. Soil compaction is what keeps buildings from sinking, what ensures roads don't crumble, what transforms raw ground into something ready to bear weight. The 814 did this work with a gentle determination, its heavy wheels pressing patterns into the earth like slow, rhythmic footprints. But first, another soft detour. Because what's quietly beautiful here is the way this machine turned patience into progress. Each pass over the soil was a repetition of trust, a reminder that before anything can rise, something must first be gently, persistently made solid beneath it. By the year 1969 of our time, Caterpillar had grown confident in scale and ambition. That year, the 992 wheel loader appeared, at the time, the largest wheel loader ever created. Standing beside it was like standing beside a creature from an age of giants, its tires alone towering higher than a person. It could lift enormous quantities of rock and ore with an ease that seemed almost serene. Its introduction expanded the idea of what a single machine could do, blending strength, precision, and longevity into one immense form. The 992 became a kind of industrial icon, shaping quarries and construction sites where humans appeared as small figures moving among the dreams of engineers. Its presence was not loud, but steady, the kind of power that hums low and constant, like the earth breathing in its sleep. A year later, as the dawn of 1970 of our time broke across construction fields, the 613 elevating scraper arrived. Unlike its predecessors, this scraper could load itself, lifting soil into its bowl using an internal conveyor. It was an act of mechanical self-sufficiency, as though the machine had learned to feed itself. This design reduced the need for additional equipment, simplifying large-scale earth-moving in a way that felt both efficient and quietly poetic. It was as if Caterpillar had taken inspiration from nature's cycles, where creatures evolve to carry their own tools, to adapt and survive through subtle ingenuity. And then, in the early years of the 1970s of our time, Caterpillar's engineers began to dream of something more nimble. Around 1972, they experimented with a concept that would later become legendary, the articulated truck. The prototype, known simply as the 740 concept, introduced a new kind of flexibility to the world of heavy hauling. Instead of rigid frames, it had a pivoting joint in the middle, allowing it to bend and turn over uneven ground with graceful control. It could twist, follow, and balance like an animal on four massive wheels, its articulation granting it a strange, almost lifelike movement. But first, a soft pause for reflection. Because this small change in structure quietly redefined mobility for decades to come. It showed that even in the world of steel, flexibility could be a form of strength. By around 1973, the hum of innovation rolled onward, giving rise to the Caterpillar 16G motor grader. Designed for the vast expanses of roads, runways, and open construction, it was a machine of precision, a sculptor of surfaces. The 16G could shape the earth into smooth, level plains with astonishing control, its long blade cutting like a craftsman's hand guided by quiet experience. It was used to grade not only soil but also gravel and asphalt, ensuring the stability and evenness of the world's new arteries of movement. There was something meditative about its operation, the slow glide of the blade, the rhythm of corrections, the endless dance between elevation and balance. And then, in the year roughly 1974 of our time, a prototype emerged that would change the silhouette of the bulldozer forever, the Caterpillar D10. It was the first to feature the now famous high-drive undercarriage, lifting its drive sprockets above the track level. This gave the D10 better traction, smoother ride quality, and easier maintenance, a leap forward in design that looked almost futuristic for its era. Its test runs were like slow-motion revelations in engineering, where each rotation of the track seemed to whisper a new idea into the earth. The high-drive system became one of Caterpillar's defining innovations, shaping future generations of track-type tractors. And in that quiet transition of gears and dust, one could almost sense a philosophy at work, the belief that even the most powerful machines could evolve not just for strength, but for grace. And so, the world of heavy machinery kept turning, each invention not just a response to need, but a soft dialogue between human intention and the patient, enduring landscapes that those machines helped to shape. There's a quiet sense of inevitability in how ideas take form, how something once imagined in dust and blueprint becomes a living, growling presence of metal and motion. Around the year 1977 of our time, this transformation appeared again in the shape of the Caterpillar D10, a machine that would quietly shift the very philosophy of earth-moving. The D10 carried forward the experimental high-drive concept first tested a few years earlier, but now it was fully realized, an official, roaring success. Its elevated drive sprockets gave the tracks a unique triangular profile, lifting the powertrain above the grit and debris that had long worn down traditional designs. This not only made the D10 more durable, but it also made maintenance far easier, allowing operators to replace parts without dismantling half the machine. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the D10 was so revolutionary that it immediately became a symbol of modern bulldozing, its tall, sloped form appearing almost animal-like, as though a steel-backed creature had emerged from the industrial age to reshape the land itself. Its launch marked not just a new model, but a new way of thinking about traction, power, and endurance in the art of moving earth. Softly, only a year later, around 1978 of our time, Caterpillar expanded its ambitions deeper into the rugged veins of mining with the introduction of the 785 off-highway truck. This was the first large mining truck built specifically for the 150-ton payload class, a size that allowed mines to scale operations efficiently while maintaining maneuverability on steep, uneven terrain. It was a masterwork of proportion, the enormous rear body perfectly balanced by the front axle and cab, its V-shaped engine compartment rumbling with diesel precision. These trucks were not fast, nor were they meant to be, their strength was in patience, and carrying enormous burdens again and again without faltering. But first, a soft pause to marvel. Because the 785 quietly became the heart of modern surface mining operations, forming long, steady processions across the scarred landscapes of ore fields, their engines low and rhythmic like distant thunder rolling through stone canyons. As the decade drifted closer to its end, around 1979 of our time, Caterpillar turned its attention inward, toward the very heart of its machines, the engines themselves. That year saw the debut of the 3500 series diesel engines, a family of power plants designed for both industrial equipment and heavy trucks. Each was built around a modular concept, meaning components could be more easily replaced or serviced, extending life and improving reliability. These engines were like the quiet lungs of the heavy equipment world, breathing energy into bulldozers, loaders, and haul trucks alike. They came in configurations ranging from 8 to 16 cylinders, each one meticulously balanced to deliver consistent torque under immense strain. The 3500s became the backbone of countless Caterpillar products, their steady pulse echoing through construction sites and mines across the world. In a sense, the 3500 series was not merely an innovation, it was a promise of continuity, a way of ensuring that every heartbeat of machinery would remain strong and dependable, even under the most punishing of conditions. By the dawn of the next decade, around 1980 of our time, Caterpillar took a bold step into even greater scale with the 5130 hydraulic mining shovel. This enormous creation was among the largest hydraulic shovels in the world at the time, built to load massive mining trucks like the 785 in only a handful of passes. Its twin hydraulic cylinders could lift tens of cubic meters of material at once, its bucket curling inward like a steel claw closing around the bones of the earth. But first, a gentle pause for perspective. Because the 5130 represented more than brute force. It was precision on a monumental scale. Hydraulic movements so finely tuned that operators could peel away layers of overburden without disturbing the valuable ore beneath. The machine stood as a reminder that even in mining, where the world is broken open to reveal its depths, there is a kind of artistry, a choreography between motion and material, patience and control. As the early 1980s unfolded, another form emerged from the dust. Around the year 1981 of our time, the Caterpillar 773 truck made its debut. This machine filled an essential niche in the company's growing lineup, a 50-ton class mining truck that offered both flexibility and endurance. It was smaller than the 785 but more agile, able to navigate tighter mining sites or construction areas with ease. Its V8 engine was robust, capable of sustaining long days of hauling rock, ore, and gravel without overheating or faltering. The 773 became a quiet workhorse across industries, equally at home in quarries, road building, and smaller open-pit mines. Its reliability earned it a reputation as one of the most trusted trucks of its kind, carrying not just loads of earth but decades of design wisdom distilled into one balanced form. Then came something softer, but no less extraordinary. Around 1983 of our time, the Challenger 65 rolled out of the Caterpillar workshops. This was the company's first rubber-tracked agricultural tractor, a revolutionary concept that replaced traditional wheels with continuous rubber tracks. The innovation offered remarkable traction while reducing soil compaction, making it gentler on farmland. Farmers quickly noticed the difference. The tractor could glide smoothly across muddy or uneven fields where wheeled machines might sink or slip. But first, a quiet detour worth savoring. Because the Challenger's invention showed how ideas could migrate gracefully between worlds. Technologies first developed for military and construction use found a new, peaceful rhythm in agriculture, helping growers move across their fields with power that felt almost serene. The Challenger's success would eventually give rise to an entire family of track-type tractors, merging strength and softness in one graceful mechanical gesture. A year later, In the soft hum of 1984 of our time, the 785 returned in a new form, the 785B mining truck. This updated version carried forward the same sturdy frame but came equipped with a higher capacity engine, refined hydraulics, and improved payload efficiency. Each refinement might have seemed small on its own, yet together they transformed the experience of mining work, reducing fuel consumption and downtime. It was the quiet, steady kind of progress that Caterpillar excelled at, the sort that doesn't demand attention but proves itself over thousands of hours of use, under the relentless wear of dust and time. Around 1985 of our time, another gentle evolution appeared, the 992C wheel loader, an updated generation of the earlier 992 line. With greater horsepower, enhanced operator comfort, and more efficient hydraulics, it could move astonishing volumes of material with ease. The 992C continued the legacy of its predecessors while pushing forward into new territories of performance, each gear and piston refined through patient engineering. Its cab offered panoramic visibility and improved ergonomics, a quiet acknowledgement that even those who command giants deserve comfort and care. And then, around 1986 of our time, the ground trembled once more under the weight of something vast, the Caterpillar 789 mining truck. With a payload capacity nearing 190 tons, it became one of the largest off-highway trucks in the world. Its massive tires could dwarf a person, and its diesel engine, pulsing with thousands of horsepower, carried ore from the depths of open-pit mines in great, slow arcs of movement. But first, a slow little reflection. Because there's something almost poetic about the 789's design. It wasn't built to race or to roar, but to endure. Its every line and joint spoke of balance, of finding harmony between gravity, geometry, and unyielding earth. In its steady labor, one could see the story of all heavy machinery distilled into a single rhythm, the eternal partnership between humankind and the patient, ever-turning soil beneath our feet. There is something soothing about the quiet evolution of machinery, how each new creation hums a little softer, works a little smoother, and carries with it the memory of the one that came before. Around the year 1987 of our time, Caterpillar refined one of its great workhorses, the 992D wheel loader. This machine, an evolution of the already mighty 992C, embodied a philosophy of careful perfection rather than sudden revolution. Its design included subtle but meaningful improvements, enhanced hydraulics that moved with a fluid grace, a redesigned cab that wrapped operators in glass and metal with improved visibility, and an engine tuned for balance between power and endurance. The 992D was not meant to shock or surprise, it was meant to endure, to perform its duties without complaint for thousands of hours at a time. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the wheel loader's enormous tires could each weigh more than an automobile, and yet their round perfection allowed this hulking beam to roll across gravel and stone with an almost meditative steadiness. Each turn of its wheels was a reminder that engineering, when done with patience, becomes its own quiet art form. Softly, around the following year, 1988 of our time, Caterpillar expanded its mining fleet with a new giant, the 793 mining truck. Designed for the 240-ton payload class, it stood between the smaller 789 and the future ultra-class behemoths that would follow. Its massive diesel engine, tuned for both strength and endurance, could move heavy ore across long distances with rhythmic precision. Yet what made it remarkable was not merely its size, but its efficiency, the way every system, from suspension to braking, worked together to manage the incredible forces involved in carrying such weight. The 793 became the heart of open-pit mines worldwide, operating in harsh climates from frozen tundra to burning deserts. But first, a quiet reflection. The engineering behind its frame, its axles, and its rigid structure was the result of decades of accumulated wisdom, each curve of metal calculated to bear unimaginable loads without faltering. The truck was, in a sense, a monument to endurance, a moving mountain of iron and diesel patience. Gently onward, around 1990 of our time, came a milestone in the story of mechanical strength, the introduction of the Caterpillar 994 wheel loader. At the moment of its release, it was the largest wheel loader in the world, designed to work alongside the biggest mining trucks in existence. Its bucket could lift over 30 tons in a single scoop, and its engine, a deep-voiced diesel marvel, pulsed with thousands of horsepower. Yet despite its immense power, the 994 was surprisingly delicate in motion, capable of precise maneuvers as it loaded ore or stone. There was something oddly graceful about it, a sense of choreography between man, machine, and earth. But first, a small, quiet detour. For a curious detail, operators of the 994 often described its steering as smooth and predictable, thanks to its advanced hydraulic system, which responded gently to the slightest movement of the controls. It was an enormous creature that behaved with the gentleness of a trained hand, proving that strength and grace need not be opposites but companions in the slow rhythm of industry. As the world drifted into the early 1990s, Caterpillar's mining lineage continued to evolve. Around 1991 of our time, the 789B mining truck appeared, a carefully updated version of the earlier 789 model. Its improvements were not loud or dramatic but quietly purposeful: more efficient engines, refined transmission systems, and better suspension to absorb the rough undulations of mine roads. It was designed not only to haul but to last, its steel frame tested against years of relentless vibration and strain. But first, a small pause. Because the subtlety of the 789B's design improvements reflected Caterpillar's philosophy at the time: evolution through iteration, the slow and deliberate shaping of excellence. Each nut and bolt had a purpose, each line of welding a silent promise of durability. Then, around 1992 of our time, came the 777C truck, an update to the popular 100-ton mining truck series that had long served as a reliable middle ground between smaller haulers and massive off-highway behemoths. The 777C featured a new transmission, improved hydraulics, and a more comfortable operator environment, advances that seemed mundane but mattered deeply over thousands of operating hours. Its reliability made it a staple in mines, quarries, and construction sites around the world. But first, a small detour for an extra interesting note. This series became so dependable that fleets of 777CS continued operating decades later, with many units surpassing their projected lifespans. They stood as quiet monuments to mechanical endurance, their steel frames aged but unbowed, their engines still breathing steadily beneath layers of dust and time. Drifting onward to around 1993 of our time, a new form of precision entered the Caterpillar family with the introduction of the 375 hydraulic excavator. This machine, large and graceful, represented the next generation of excavators, hydraulic systems powerful yet finely tuned, capable of delicate trenching as easily as deep earth moving. With its long boom and heavy counterweight, the 375 could reach impressive depths and heights, its arm moving in slow arcs that seemed almost biological, like the limb of a giant animal. But first, a slow, thoughtful pause. Because this excavator marked a shift in engineering focus, from mere strength to controlled motion, from force to finesse. The way it harnessed hydraulic pressure was a quiet triumph of fluid dynamics, an elegant reminder that oil and steel could dance together in harmony. Then, softly, around 1994 of our time, came the 24H motor grader, the largest of its kind ever produced by Caterpillar. This machine was designed for the long, precise art of leveling vast stretches of road and terrain, often in remote and harsh environments. It featured a 12-cylinder engine and an enormous blade, over 7 meters long, capable of sculpting the ground to perfection. But first, a gentle detour. The grader's role, though often overlooked, was essential to every other machine's performance. Roads must be flat and stable for trucks to haul efficiently, and it was the 24H that quietly ensured the foundation. Its immense frame moved with slow deliberation, shaping pathways that others would follow. And then, around 1995 of our time, a whisper of something extraordinary began to take shape, the prototype of the Caterpillar 797. This was no ordinary truck, but the concept of an ultra-class haul truck, a new category of size and capability that stretched the boundaries of what was possible. Testing began in quiet fields and controlled tracks, where engineers measured everything from fuel efficiency to frame stress. The prototype's towering presence inspired awe and curiosity, standing taller than a house and longer than 2 city buses. But first, a soft detour worth lingering upon. This machine's design required entirely new manufacturing approaches. Its tires alone were monumental, each one several meters high, produced by specialized suppliers to endure loads that defied imagination. Then, around 1996 of our time, the prototype became reality. The Caterpillar 797 was officially launched, immediately earning the title of the world's largest haul truck. Capable of carrying payloads exceeding 360 tons, it represented decades of engineering distilled into a single, colossal form. Its diesel engine, over 3,500 horsepower strong, could move mountains, quite literally. Yet even in its immensity, there was poetry. The 797 was not loud in its purpose, it simply existed to perform its task, day after day, ton after ton, with patient precision. But first, a soft reflection. Because every rivet, every piston, every drop of hydraulic oil within it whispered the story of countless minds working slowly, deliberately, toward one shared vision, efficiency on a monumental scale. By around 1997 of our time, Caterpillar introduced the 320B excavator, a smaller yet no less significant machine that embodied the next generation of hydraulic control. It brought advanced electronic systems to balance power with sensitivity, allowing operators to dig, lift, and move with uncanny precision. The 320B was not designed for grand spectacles but for the quiet, everyday work that built the world piece by piece, trenches for pipes, foundations for walls, channels for irrigation. But first, a little pause to admire its gentle innovation. Because the 320B's technology represented the subtle merging of mechanical tradition and digital precision. Its sensors and systems, while hidden beneath layers of metal and grease, marked the dawn of a new era in machine intelligence, one where even the heaviest labor began to move with the soft, thoughtful rhythm of human touch translated into hydraulic grace. Softly drifting into the quieter corners of time, we find ourselves around the year 1998 of our time, where the Caterpillar 365 excavator emerged, a heavy mining class machine designed to work with a kind of stoic, unwavering patience. It was a creature of steel and hydraulics, vast and sure-footed, capable of moving mountains one slow, deliberate motion at a time. The 365 was not simply an excavator, it was a bridge between eras, when analog power began to merge with precision control. Each hydraulic movement whispered of a new philosophy in engineering, machines that were not merely strong, but thoughtful in their efficiency. Operators began to feel, quite literally, the pulse of technology within the levers and controls. And perhaps there was a strange kind of poetry in that, the merging of muscle and mind through machinery, a quiet foreshadowing of the smarter, gentler giants to come. Then, gently drifting a year forward to around 1999 of our time, another Leviathan took shape, the Caterpillar 5230 hydraulic shovel. One of the largest of its kind, this immense machine was designed to work in the vast open cuts of mines where silence is broken only by the slow hum of diesel and the deep crunch of earth. Its enormous bucket could scoop tens of cubic meters of rock in one graceful motion, almost like a mechanical whale feeding in the depths. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting thought, these shovels, despite their intimidating size, were crafted with a remarkable focus on balance and control. Their weight distribution, the articulation of each joint, even the timing of hydraulic flow, all was tuned to make something enormous move with the precision of a careful hand. It was an era when heavy industry began to dance with finesse. As we float into the earliest breaths of the new millennium, around the year 2000 of our time, something quietly revolutionary stirred within Caterpillar's designs, the 24M motor grader. It introduced electronic controls into a class of machines that had long relied on pure mechanical instinct. Graders, with their long frames and centrally mounted blades, are the sculptors of the earth, shaping roads, slopes, and surfaces with serene accuracy. And now, with the integration of digital assistants, they gained a new sense of awareness. Operators could fine-tune movements with unseen precision, almost as if the machine could feel the terrain beneath its tires. It marked a moment when touch and technology intertwined, transforming roadwork into an act of refined art rather than brute force. Around the year 2001 of our time, the mighty 797B mining truck rumbled into existence, an upgraded ultra-class behemoth capable of carrying hundreds of tons in a single haul. Its sheer scale was staggering, tires taller than a person, an engine that could power a small town, and a bed so vast that one could almost imagine it holding a small house. Yet what made it fascinating wasn't just its size, but the delicate balance it maintained. Engineers fine-tuned suspension and braking systems so meticulously that even under immense load, it moved like a careful giant. The 797B became a symbol of industrial harmony, where mechanical might coexisted with an almost gentle precision, like a creature that knows its strength but chooses grace instead. By around 2002 of our time, Caterpillar looked toward something smaller, but equally meaningful, the 303.5 mini excavator. Compact, nimble, and efficient, it represented a new kind of thinking. Not all power had to come from size, sometimes, agility and adaptability could achieve just as much. These smaller machines found homes in urban projects, garden landscapes, and narrow workspaces, where their quiet hum replaced the thunder of larger equipment. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this shift was symbolic, an acknowledgement that progress isn't always loud or vast. Sometimes, it hums softly, shaping the small corners of the world with patience and care. Then, as the rhythm of time continued into 2003 of our time, the Caterpillar 345C excavator emerged, another step in the evolution of hydraulic mastery. It built upon decades of experience, combining improved engines with advanced hydraulics, granting operators even greater control over movements so minute that one could position a bucket edge within centimeters. The 345C represented that subtle balance between power and touch, between human intuition and mechanical design. It showed how machines could echo the precision of human hands, transforming the roughness of rock and soil into carefully measured order. About the year 2004 of our time, the M318D wheeled excavator arrived, carrying with it the quiet hum of European engineering compliance. Designed with efficiency and emission consciousness, it represented Caterpillar's growing awareness of environmental responsibility. These machines, equipped with cleaner engines and smarter systems, were built not just for output, but for sustainability. It was a gentle shift, industry beginning to move in rhythm with ecology. The excavator's rubber wheels allowed it to glide across paved streets without scarring them, and its new hydraulics reduced energy loss, turning raw fuel into carefully measured work. Around 2005 of our time, the 320D excavator was introduced, further refining hydraulic precision and incorporating the Tier 3 engine, a cleaner, more efficient heart for a familiar form. It was part of a generation that understood the quiet importance of efficiency, where every drop of fuel, every pulse of hydraulic oil, mattered. And there's something soothing about that, the notion of big machines learning to be gentle, learning restraint, learning to do more with less. The 320D became a kind of working philosophy, where progress was measured not only in strength but in sensitivity. And softly turning the page to around 2006 of our time, the Caterpillar D7E electric drive tractor rolled quietly into the world, a marvel of engineering that hummed rather than roared. It became the first electric drive track-type tractor, replacing complex mechanical transmissions with smooth, efficient electric systems. The result was a machine that not only worked with newfound precision but did so while consuming less fuel and emitting less noise. There was an almost meditative stillness to it, a bulldozer that seemed to whisper through the soil rather than tear across it. And in that quiet hum, one could sense the direction of the future, heavy industry learning the language of silence, strength rewritten as serenity, and motion transformed into an art form of calm power. Drifting softly into the years just after 2006 of our time, we reach the quiet hum of around 2007, when the Caterpillar 793F mining truck appeared upon the stage of industry, a 240-ton colossus refined with new awareness. It was built not only for might, but for mindfulness, equipped with cleaner Tier 2 emission standards, whispering of a world beginning to think differently about the air that wrapped around it. Its heart, an immense diesel engine, throbbed with deep, measured rhythm, yet within that rhythm was a kind of restraint, a conscious step toward gentler power. In the vast, echoing expanses of open-pit mines, the 793F moved like an ancient beast reborn, its electric systems humming quietly beneath steel skin, carrying ore as if it were lifting the weight of the planet itself. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting thought, the engineering of trucks like these had to balance mass and grace. Each suspension joint, each hydraulic hose, was designed to absorb the tremor of Earth so that hundreds of tons could glide rather than stumble. It is a strange beauty, to witness such enormity move with calm precision, like a mountain learning how to breathe. And then, around the gentle turn of 2008 of our time, came the Caterpillar 336D hydraulic excavator, a machine that became something of a quiet favorite across the world's worksites. Its Assert engine represented an elegant evolution in combustion technology, crafted to meet emission standards while preserving the deep, patient strength for which the brand was known. The 336D became a companion to countless projects, digging canals, shaping foundations, sculpting the living crust of cities yet to come. It was not just an excavator, it was a continuation of the human wish to mold the earth carefully, efficiently, almost tenderly. Operators often described how it felt smoother, more responsive, more alive beneath their fingertips. And perhaps, in some soft mechanical way, it was a creature whose hydraulics learned to breathe in harmony with its driver's touch. Flowing onward into around 2009 of our time, we find the Caterpillar 994H wheel loader, a monumental upgrade upon an already legendary lineage. It carried within it the strength to lift over 40 tons in a single scoop, yet its operation was refined, quiet in its confidence. Engineers had improved its payload, its durability, and its comfort, blending endurance with a kind of stoic composure. One could almost imagine it as a mechanical guardian of the mines, lifting, carrying, and returning again, hour after hour, day after day, like the steady tide of a human-made sea. But first, a slow little detour. For a thoughtful pause, machines like the 994H are built for environments few will ever see, vast, sun-hardened landscapes of dust and depth. Their engines hum through dawn and dusk, their lights glowing like tiny stars beneath the veil of industrial night. In their quiet labor, there is an odd poetry, one of repetition, of patience, of heavy work done with grace. And then, as if guided by that same hum of progress, around the year 2010 of our time arrived the Caterpillar 795F AC truck. It marked a turning point in how electricity began to weave its way into heavy machinery, introducing an alternating current, AC, electric drive system that replaced traditional mechanical transmissions. This meant smoother acceleration, more efficient energy use, and greater control, especially when navigating steep, unpredictable terrain. It was a gentle revolution, where electrons replaced gears, and current flowed where once only steel had ruled. The 795F was a vision of transition, of mining trucks that no longer roared alone but hummed in conversation with circuitry. Its design reflected a growing truth, that progress, when done thoughtfully, can sound like quiet improvement rather than loud disruption. Around the soft cusp of 2011 of our time, the world saw the arrival of the Caterpillar 6090 FS, a hydraulic mining shovel so immense it could fill the bed of a haul truck with a single, graceful movement. It was the largest of its kind ever built, a towering expression of human ambition in mechanical form. Yet even this giant moved with balance and delicacy. Its twin engines provided nearly 4,500 horsepower, but the way it operated, each arm motion smooth and deliberate, felt almost meditative. Engineers spoke of it as if it had personality, predictable, calm, and responsive despite its monstrous size. But first, a slow little detour. For something quietly wondrous, the shovel's size required it to be disassembled for transport, carried in parts across continents before being reassembled like an enormous metallic puzzle. Every bolt, every joint, returned to its place with millimeter precision, ensuring that this titan could move the earth without trembling. And softly, as if exhaling after great exertion, we drift into around 2012 of our time. Here, the Caterpillar 349E excavator took its place, an excavator that not only worked but also breathed with modern environmental awareness, equipped with a Tier 4 interim engine. It represented a world listening more closely to the rhythm of nature, reducing emissions, and improving fuel efficiency without losing strength. Its hydraulic system was tuned for responsiveness, allowing smoother digging and lifting, conserving energy like a creature that has learned when to move and when to rest. The 349E stood as a quiet promise that the future of heavy machinery could be both powerful and gentle, that industry and ecology need not stand opposed, but could sway together like reeds in the same slow wind. Drifting softly into around the year 2013 of our time, we find the Caterpillar 320E excavator, an evolution shaped not by louder power, but by quieter wisdom. This model brought a notable improvement in fuel efficiency, a thoughtful refinement that marked a shift in philosophy. It was no longer enough for a machine to simply dig or lift, it had to do so with mindfulness, consuming less, lasting longer, moving more smoothly through the rhythm of a workday. The 320E became a trusted companion in cities and farmlands alike, its balanced weight and responsive hydraulics allowing operators to feel its movements as if it were an extension of their own arms. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting detail, fuel efficiency in hydraulic systems is a complex ballet of pressure, timing, and fluid flow. To improve it, Caterpillar engineers reimagined how oil moved through the system, how it could carry force without unnecessary strain, how each droplet of diesel could be stretched into a longer breath of productivity. It may sound small, yet this subtle re-engineering saved countless liters of fuel across the world, turning a simple excavator into a quiet revolution of restraint and endurance. Gently continuing into around 2014 of our time, the Caterpillar 390F emerged, a monumental excavator equipped with the Tier 4 final engine technology, symbolizing yet another step in the long dance between progress and preservation. It was immense, strong enough to lift nearly 70 metric tons, yet it carried within it a cleaner heart. Its exhaust after-treatment systems, diesel oxidation catalysts and particulate filters, worked invisibly to reduce harmful emissions, allowing this great creature of steel to breathe cleaner into the world it reshaped. The 390F stood as proof that size and responsibility could coexist, that even the heaviest of labor could be performed with quiet grace. But first, let us drift into a soft little detour of thought. To design engines that burn fuel efficiently without losing strength is to balance two ancient forces, the need for fire, and the wish to protect the air. The engineers at Caterpillar, in their long laboratories of noise and light, were effectively building modern hearths, machines that burn hot but live clean. And then, in the calm hum of around 2015 of our time, came the Caterpillar D6K2 bulldozer, a machine that combined strength with precision in a way that felt almost artistic. This model introduced advanced grade control technology, systems that allowed it to sense, calculate, and adjust the blade's position in real time. The ground itself became a map that the bulldozer could read, responding to invisible coordinates with almost animal-like intuition. For operators, it meant smoother surfaces, fewer corrections, less fuel, and more quiet confidence. But first, a gentle detour. For this quietly fascinating notion, grade control is like teaching a giant to paint with perfect accuracy. Sensors and satellites whisper coordinates through radio waves, and a machine that once relied purely on the instincts of a human hand now moves as if guided by thought itself. It turns construction into choreography, each movement measured, balanced, deliberate. As the years unfurled toward around 2016 of our time, the Caterpillar 988KZ appeared on the horizon, glowing faintly in the light of new ideas. It was the first electric drive wheel loader from Caterpillar, a monumental shift that replaced traditional transmissions with electric components, merging heavy lifting with smooth, near-silent energy transfer. Inside its vast frame, electricity became the pulse that powered tons of earth, stone, and steel. The design reduced fuel consumption and mechanical wear, but it also brought an almost ethereal smoothness to its operation, like watching a whale glide through deep water, immense yet effortless. But first, a slow detour into reflection. Electricity, in a machine like this, is not just efficiency, it is conversation. Every wire hums with data, every control adjusts with awareness, turning power into dialogue. In such machines, the boundary between muscle and mind begins to blur. Around 2017 of our time, the Caterpillar 797F took a step into a realm once reserved for science fiction. It became one of the first autonomous haul trucks in full deployment, capable of navigating, loading, and dumping without a driver inside the cab. In the great open pits of Western Australia and South America, these vast, driverless titans moved with perfect coordination, guided by radar, GPS, and algorithms that read terrain like poetry. To watch one from a distance was to see the future quietly happening in real time, a mechanical herd that never sleeps, never errs, and never rushes. But first, a gentle pause for this extra interesting fact: the 797F's autonomy reduced accidents, optimized routes, and maximized efficiency in ways no human fleet could. Yet its programming still echoed the wisdom of human experience, each movement modeled after countless hours of observation from real operators. It was progress not of replacement, but of remembrance. Flowing onward to around 2018 of our time, the Caterpillar 330 next-generation excavator entered the stage with an entirely new sense of awareness. It was described not just as a machine, but as a smart companion, equipped with integrated technology that monitored payloads, fuel efficiency, and hydraulic precision in real time. Sensors gathered constant feedback, adjusting flows, angles, and timing so each movement became more economical and more graceful. For the first time, an excavator could truly think alongside its operator, offering gentle guidance, subtle corrections, and quiet advice through digital displays and sensors. But first, a small detour for a dreamy thought: such systems are not simply computation, they are early whispers of mechanical empathy. Machines learning to listen to themselves, and to the humans who command them, to create a partnership of intuition and logic. And softly, into the calm rhythm of around 2019 of our time, the Caterpillar 740GC articulated truck joined the lineage, a next-generation hauler that focused on dependability, balance, and operator comfort. Its automatic traction control, smooth transmission, and efficient fuel management made it feel less like a brute machine and more like a confident, steady creature of burden, attuned to the landscapes it crossed. The 740GC's cab was redesigned for quieter operation and greater visibility, small human-centered details that made long workdays less weary. But first, let us wander for a moment into a gentle reflection. The art of hauling is one of rhythm and repetition, of moving weight without haste. The best machines, like this one, find poetry in patience, each cycle a quiet heartbeat in the slow, endless pulse of progress. Gently floating into around the year 2020 of our time, we encounter the Caterpillar R1700Z loader, a remarkable, though quietly so, machine as it became the first battery-electric underground loader from Caterpillar. Unlike its traditional diesel-powered cousins, the R1700Z hums softly with stored electricity, moving through the dim tunnels beneath the earth with near-silent grace. Its electric drive offered reduced emissions, diminished heat generation, and a more predictable, even rhythm for operators who navigated the shadowed subterranean pathways. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, designing an underground loader for battery power is not merely a matter of swapping fuel sources. Engineers must consider ventilation, weight distribution, energy storage, and heat dissipation, ensuring that the machine can work hours on end in confined spaces without disturbing the delicate balance of air and stone. The R1700Z was a careful meditation on these constraints, proving that even heavy machinery could move with quiet attentiveness, a gentle giant navigating darkness without haste, without roar, only the soft, rhythmic pulse of current through copper veins. Drifting onward into around the year 2021 of our time, the Caterpillar 395 excavator appeared, a high-performance, large hydraulic excavator that combined immense strength with subtle refinement. It could lift and move enormous amounts of material with precision, yet its operation was tempered by improved hydraulics and smoother control systems that allowed operators to feel an almost meditative connection with the machine's movements. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting reflection, a large excavator like the 395 is more than power. It is an orchestra of valves, pumps, pistons, and cylinders, each performing its own quiet symphony, allowing tons of steel and earth to rise and fall in unison. Engineers painstakingly calculate flow rates, pressure tolerances, and arm geometry to ensure that every scoop, every rotation, and every extension is performed without strain, preserving the longevity of the machine and the patience of the operator. Observing one of these giants in motion is like watching a river carve its course, slow, deliberate, inevitable, yet somehow soft. Floating gently into around 2022 of our time, we see the Caterpillar D10 Dozer new generation emerge, a modernized descendant of a long line of high-drive track-type tractors. Its improvements focused on efficiency, operator comfort, and precision control, combining the classic high-drive design with advancements in hydraulics, electronics, and fuel economy. The D10 had long been known for its ability to push enormous amounts of earth, yet in this updated version, it moved with refined smoothness, translating raw strength into thoughtful motion. But first, a soft little detour. For an extra quiet fact, the engineering of a large bulldozer is a delicate balance between traction and soil displacement. Each track must distribute weight to maximize contact while minimizing soil compaction beyond the intended path. The high drive system, characteristic of the D10 line, provides both durability and ease of maintenance, allowing operators to guide the machine as if steering a slow, deliberate creature across the landscape. Its diesel engine, now tuned for modern efficiency, hums gently beneath its hood, a consistent heartbeat in an otherwise still environment. And now, drifting softly into around the year 2023 of our time, the Caterpillar 793 autonomous truck appears, a continuation of the legacy of ultra-class haul trucks, now freed from the presence of a human operator inside the cab. This autonomous version is guided by GPS, radar, and sophisticated onboard computers, navigating mining roads and pit slopes with astonishing precision and patience. But first, a gentle detour. For this extra interesting reflection, programming a massive truck to drive itself is not merely mechanical, it is a quiet study in anticipation and adaptation. Every corner, every incline, every load change must be predicted and accommodated, so the truck can move safely without interruption, like a slow river finding its course. Observing the 793 autonomous at work is almost hypnotic, the synchronized motion of tires, suspension, and steering systems unfolding in continuous, gentle cadence, an interplay of physics, electronics, and gravity. It is a reminder that even machines, when guided by thoughtful design, can possess a rhythm that soothes rather than startles. Flowing onward into around the year 2024 of our time, we find the Caterpillar 789 mining truck, updated with modern controls. This venerable 190-ton class hauler has been refined with electronic throttle control, improved operator interfaces, and enhanced diagnostics, allowing each journey to be more efficient, predictable, and soft in its execution. But first, a quiet detour. For this extra interesting thought, in a truck this size, the smallest adjustment in control systems can have enormous consequences for fuel economy, tire wear, and safety. Engineers spend months calibrating response curves, braking systems, and load sensors so that the operator's hand is always met with a consistent, gentle action. In a sense, the 789 becomes a slow companion, translating human intent into mechanical motion while minimizing strain on both machine and environment. Each tire turn, each suspension flex, each engine revolution is a testament to the subtle poetry of engineering at immense scale. And gently, drifting into around the year 2025 of our time, we encounter the Caterpillar 777G electric prototype, an electric drive haul truck that is still in testing, exploring the quiet possibilities of current over combustion. Unlike its predecessors, it hums rather than roars, storing energy in vast battery packs that feed electric motors for traction and braking. But first, a soft detour. For this extra contemplative reflection, developing an electric ultra-class truck is a study in patience, weight distribution, and thermal management. The engineers must ensure that the batteries remain cool, the drive motors responsive, and the overall performance consistent across hours of operation, all while maintaining the gentle rhythm of a vehicle that can carry hundreds of tons. Observing such a prototype is like listening to a very slow, steady pulse, a mechanical heartbeat that hints at a future where machines move with quiet attentiveness, efficiency, and almost whisper-like grace. You may not care about torque curves, or combustion ratios, or track tension bolts. And that is completely fine. Because tonight, these quiet mechanical facts have done their work. If your eyes are closed, if your thoughts are drifting, then my job here is done for today. Thank you for spending this unremarkable moment with me. You have listened to The Sleepy Sloth, where uninteresting things become the softest lullabies.